Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I am your host, Chris Gargano. Our guest, Kenny Shedd. Get this career. Are you sitting down? 7 years as an NFL wide receiver and special teams player. Then he retired from the NFL and became a San Leandro, California police officer for the next 20 years. He has recently retired. Now he is making films. He's a filmmaker, and he will tell us throughout this conversation about his most recent project. You will be interested. He went to college with Kurt Warner at Northern Iowa and then was drafted by the New York Jets in the 5th round of the 1993 draft. There's so much to talk about with Kenny Shedd, but there's a common theme here. He never backs down to a challenge. The conversation begins now with Kenny Shedd on Keep the Line Moving. So, Kenny, first of all, let's look at this. You are a high-caliber college player, right? You know, at the University of Northern Iowa. You get drafted in the 5th round in 1993 by the New York Jets.
Yeah.
Let's start there. What was that moment like to go to the NFL after coming from a mid-level college program?
It was scary. I honestly believe I had one of the worst rookie years, I think, ever for any professional football player, only because I was just so naive to the fact of just that my college career was going to carry over to the NFL. And it just so happened that I went to the nation's biggest freaking city where the reporters are just like nasty and just horrible when they don't like you. And even when they like you, they still write these articles that are designed to really poke at you. So it was a bad experience. But in the end, I had to dig deep and figure out how to make it, because I could have easily thrown in the towel, Chris, up there, everything that I was faced. I got released like 20 times, I think, my rookie year, but I was always able to find something that kept me going. And it was actually my writing. So yeah, it was a great experience. But my Jets thing, I don't really talk too much about it. It's all about the Raiders, because they were the team that first gave me my shot to play in the NFL.
Kenny, look, you and I have talked about this. We've known each other a long time.
Yeah.
You did tap into your resiliency, right, in New York, right? And you talked about the media. You talked about the ups and downs, about being, practice squad up and all the different variations of your career at that time. But something in you kept you going. What was that?
Hey, well, Chris, I have to tell you this. My very first day, showing up at the Jets training camp, or one of the camps that they had right after I got drafted, I did not bring the memo with me and the paperwork and itinerary and all that stuff that showed where the training facility was, which was in Hempstead, New York. I was stuck in the LaGuardia airport for like 4 hours, missed the opening of the team meetings with all my coaches and everything and other draft choices. And so that's how my rookie year started. I had put such a horrible impression in the eyes of my other teammates and then the other coaches that I think it was written in the stars from the beginning that I wasn't going to be with the Jets very long. And I just didn't realize it yet.
But so you go to Chicago, right? So now we're on an upward trajectory, right? You have the foundational elements of Northern Iowa. You learn a ton in Hempstead, New York with the New York Jets, and understand why that probably now as you're getting older, right? Understanding why that experience happened. And then so what happened at the Bears that got you rolling to where you wanted to be?
Before I left the Jets, one of the things that stood out to me more than anything that helped carry me over now that I'm in a new environment was the conversation I had with Ronnie Lott. So when I was with the Jets, Ronnie, he took a liking to me. He swung by and picked me up because I was walking from our hotel where we stayed, or our dorm where we stayed, to the training facility. And he picked me up. He's like, "Man, dude, you have some skills. You're super fast and everybody's talking about you. You're making a great impression. You just keep working hard and you're gonna make something out of yourself in the league." And that's coming from Ronnie Lott. So, like I said, I was unable to recover and get things back going with the Jets. But I remember that when I got picked up by the Bears, because now I'm saying to myself, okay, I got a fresh new start. I have one of the best all-around Hall of Famer pro players in the ever saying that I can actually be pretty good too. Now I have a chance to start all over in a fresh slate with the Bears. So I went in there and I I had a little bit of attitude about me. I walked in there like I was like one of the best additions that they added. I was catching all the balls at practice. I was showing off, and I was again using my speed to run past people, and I had some great catching abilities and stuff. So I carried that over. Now, Chris, when you asked me what happened, I think what really happened was I learned so many skills and I got better at practice. Now, when the game started, then that was a whole nother thing, because you go out there and you're at Soldier Field and you're surrounded by all these Bears fans, and this environment is very foreboding and it's just kind of like intimidating. And it's like, oh, I got to perform. And I think my nerves got the best of me. So I caught all these balls in practice, and the one ball that was thrown to me in the game, I dropped. And I don't know, it was the nerves. It hit you very clearly that until you're out there playing and you're making your mistakes out there on the field and game time type speed type whatever, you're going to be a rookie who's still raw and doesn't know how to play very well just yet. And that came back to bite me with the Bears. So yeah, I lasted about a year with the Bears.
However, you went into the Bears and probably, and is this safe to say? I'm going to ask it as a question.
Yep.
Kenny, you go into the Bears with that heightened confidence because of what Ronnie Lott said to you, the Hall of Famer, the 49er, the Raider, the Jet, obviously, and that's where you two met. That was a major endorsement. Was that a catalyst that kept you going and throughout your 7-year NFL career? Ronnie
Lott has meant a lot to me from the very beginning, I think, with the Jets. And actually, he put such an impression on me because one day with the Jets, we go out bowling, right? So we broke up into teams and everybody was bowling like strikes and hitting it, except me, apparently. And I turn around, I'm hearing somebody laughing, and it's Ronnie. And he has a big crowd around him, and they're laughing at me. And it's like, Kenny, you suck. You're the only one who hasn't hit a strike or anything. I was like, what? So it came down to one last frame, Chris, and he rounded up everybody around me. And I said, oh, okay, I'll show you something. And I don't know where this came from. And he bet me $20. I should have bet him more than that now that I think. And I went and I just dug deep and went whoosh, sent that ball down there, boom, strike. Everybody just went nuts. And I kept that $20 all the way in Chicago. And I would look at that $20 all the time thinking, hey, somebody believes in me. And it kept me motivated all through the Bears and all that stuff.
So let's pause there for a second. I have to compliment you and say this. What you're doing now, you're a filmmaker now. So we'll get to that in a minute. What I have to tell you, you're a great storyteller, because that is the story about your bowling right there and how you had the anticipation. We were living that with you. I love that story. The fact you kept the $20 bill, I just think that's awesome. All right, so you're out of football for a year, and then I want to really get to what you're doing now. And wait a minute, and the 20 years in between. We'll get to that too.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. So, Kenny, you're out of football. How did you become an Oakland Raider?
It almost didn't even happen for me because at that time, with the restrictions on the scout team or practice squad and stuff that was called back then, if anytime you spent a year on a regular roster, which is what I spent a year on with the Bears, even though I didn't play, you can at that time you can no longer go back to the practice squad or anything like that. You either had to be on a full team as a full player for that full year, or you were out of football. And so that's what happened with me, is that I could no longer do anything. And when the Bears released me, I couldn't find another team and stuff. So I had to sit out a year. And so me and my agent at the time, we had to make a decision. It's like, okay, are you going to continue going with football, or are you going to give it up? And a friend at the time said, why don't you look into the World League? And I looked at him, I was like, I'm not ready to quit. So I put myself in a position to go to the World League, and I was able to go and spend a year with the Barcelona Dragons. And I hurt my shoulder, and I barely made it through that year playing because it was like so severely dislocated. But out there, you're playing for freaking beans, number one, but you're all playing to try to get back into the NFL. When I got done with that year, I get a phone call from my agent, and they said, hey, there's this guy named Al Davis who wants to know how your shoulder is doing. Is it still hurting? I'm like, no, it's fine. He's like, okay, they want to sign you. And I was like, what? And right then, I don't know what it was, but right then something told me it's going to be all good now. And I show up with the Raiders, and Willie Brown was the first one to pick me up at the airport and get me there. I didn't even know who he was at the time, but that's Willie Brown. And he drives me through Oakland to the facility, and I'm just like, holy shit, this is real. So yeah, Chris, and it was like an amazing time for me.
So Kenny, Al Davis loved speed. You were very fast. Did he ever tell you in subsequent days from when Willie Brown drove you, the Hall of Famer, Willie Brown drove you through the Oakland into the facility? Did he ever tell you, Al, why he brought you on?
I already knew it. I mean, he gravitated to the people who he really, really liked. And I have to say it, he really connected with me right off the bat. You know, he brought me in at a time when they had Rocket Ishmael on the roster. And I already kind of knew what he thought about me because during the preseason, they made the decision to trade Rocket and keep me. And Rocket was known as one of the fastest dudes in the NFL. So Bruce Allen was the guy at the time, the general manager, and he said, hey, we're trading Rocket, so get ready. And I was like, okay. So I already knew that my speed is what got me there. And it was exciting time because I was playing with guys like James Trapp, who Olympic guy, James Jett also won a gold medal in the Olympics. And here I am neck and neck racing with those guys. And it was an elite group. So, yeah, it was, and Al Davis loved it.
So when you think back, Kenny, how did the Raiders hit your heart? For example, when you say Oakland Raiders and Kenny Shedd and your number one memory, like the feeling you had with being a Raider, what is that?
It was fantastic. And I could not believe that now I'm a part of it. And then I was embraced by the Raider fans and the Raider Nation. So a lot of it, I think, is like, wow, the rumors about this place is true. It was not this fantasy land. They loved their team, and everything about it that I always heard was confirmed that this is like the best team in the freaking NFL.
Oh, can I ask you this though, Kenny? Because you were alluding to it. Ronnie Lott took you under his wing pretty much, right, when you were a Jet.
Yep.
So when you got to the Raiders, you mentioned some of those speedy receivers, James Jett and others, right? Mm-hmm. And you were right neck and neck with them.
Yeah.
But who took you under their wing as a Raider and helped you acclimate to becoming an effective Raider in special teams, receiving and such? Who was that individual, or was there a few?
He's an okay ball player. He might have gone into the Hall of Fame, played at Notre Dame and won the Heisman and all that stuff. Tim Brown,
Number 81. Yeah.
Number 81. He was a fantastic, he still is. Chris, when I see him at the Raider reunions and stuff like that, it's almost like the time has not passed. He's still, hey man, how you been? And I'll send him texts and stuff like that. He'll respond back. When I was a police officer, he was like checking on me and all that stuff. And one of the memories I remember about Tim is that he not only was a great mentor on the football field, and I tell this story a lot because it really means a lot. And I actually I still have a brown leather jacket that he gave to me for a Christmas present. And so at that Christmas party that we had for our receivers, right, we're sitting there and it's like packed with everybody. Ricky Dudley, James Jett, who else we have at that time? All Timmy, obviously, Daryl Hobbs, I think, was there. So all Andrew Glover, Poncho, all the receivers and stuff were there, and we're having fun. And we're ordering our food, and I'm sitting next to Timmy. I go to the waitress, okay, I'd like a steak and some potatoes. And she's like, okay, all right, coming right up. And then she starts to walk off, and he's like, and he gave me this look like, I'm like, what? He's like, aren't you going to order some vegetables? And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you need some vegetables. And I was like, oh, shoot, ma'am, could you? And then she came back over and was like, can we order me some vegetables too? She's like, oh, okay, yeah, right away. And then it's like, okay, all right, that's fine. He was watching over me like a big brother because, my body needs nutrients from vegetables, apparently. So the dude is fantastic. And, I'm just surrounded by greatness, even still, Chris, still.
I love that story. Did did you like vegetables? I don't want to go down
Not
this
at all.
rabbit hole.
Not at all. But whatever he says, you do.
No, and Tim Brown says you need vegetables. You need to have vegetables. All right, Kenny. So you have this great 7-year NFL career where you end with the Washington franchise back in the day in 2000. And then you decide to become a police officer. Could you tell us that story, my friend?
I knew that I was going to jump into it because my dad was a police officer and, for 25 plus years and stuff. So I would always hear his stories, and that's something I always wanted to do. Even when I was playing, I was always, reaching out to local police departments and stuff and trying to do ride-alongs. I did several ride-alongs while I was still playing. And it was very exciting because I always knew, obviously, that I wasn't going to be able to play forever. And then, so I already kind of had a lead into that's what I was wanting to do. And all I had to do was wait for my final day to be over with the football. And then I was going to start at it. When I was done with Washington, and then the Raiders went to the Super Bowl, and I was just basically just an outsider pretty much by that time. I'm sitting there throughout the one day, and I get this phone call from Butch, and he's like, "Hey, the old man wanted me to call and check on you and see how you're doing. He's over there right now watching his team as they're practicing." I'm just like, "Wait, you're at the Super Bowl and you're practicing right now and you guys are calling?" He's like, "Yeah, he was wanting to know how you're doing and if you're still looking into this police thing." And I'm just like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, well, he wants you to call him like when the Super Bowl's over with." And I already kind of knew at that time that I think that he was either going to bring me back for not necessarily as a player, but as probably a coach. And I had to make a decision, and I made the decision to not call back and let the whole Raider thing go. And then because I had to kind of start committing to the police thing, and so that was how everything kind of ended. But it was still one of my favorite memories because Mr. Davis had meant so much to me, and just knowing that he was still thinking about me at that time, it's just mind blowing. So
let's look at this. You're an NFL. You go to Northern Iowa. You play with Kurt Warner. We'll talk about him in a second. You have a 7-year NFL career where you're feisty. You transition to being a police officer for 20 years, and you have a lot of success in law enforcement. And now you're into filmmaking. So when you were born many years ago, or not that many years ago, I should say.
God, I love you.
So somebody's talking to you, and you pick the hardest, difficult professions to conquer and challenge you and excel in. I think that's very cool, my friend. I really do.
Well, yeah, I sometimes, I have to make some sacrifices, though, Chris. I mean, to be honest with you, it hasn't been easy, but for whatever reason, I'm not satisfied. I mean, people say to me all the time, "Yeah, you played in the NFL. That's fantastic." I'm like, no, I did not become the big name Jerry Rice guy. To me, that's the accomplishment right there, and when I went to the police department, shoot, I mean, it's everybody's goal as a cop to get promoted, doom. And now all of a sudden you're the captain and then you're a chief and all that stuff. I couldn't get past being a patrol officer because I was so hard-headed, and I'm mad at myself for that. So now I'm just like, okay, all right. Now that I've kind of like done all that stuff, I really have this final shot to really make a name for myself. And it's the movie making thing. And, because I feel like the ultimate goal is to one day have a film that we wrote on the big screen. And we're not there just yet, Chris. So yeah, that's what's motivating me. And it's all because of, I think, being encouraged, I guess is the better word, by people like the Mark Davises and the Al Davises. And I say Mark Davis now because he's taken over where his dad left off. I talked to him the other day, and he's like pushing me and behind me and supporting me and all that stuff. So why not keep going?
I think it's a great story. And listen, Kenny, a
Sir.
sense of urgency and getting after it, per se, quote unquote, right? And
Yeah.
wanting to do great work and having a little bit of an abrupt nature to the way you say things is not being a jerk. You know, you can't be a jerk if you're not a jerk, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying here? Your character is strong, and your intention is to make a great movie and to get people along with you with that intention. We all want to get things done, and sometimes you have to have a little edge in your voice, right?
Holy smoke, Chris, you just knocked it out the park, man. Wow. And yeah, I mean, I think that you got the kind of the same mindset, you know. I mean, everything I see that you're doing for like these programs for the kids and all these different things, it's just amazing. So I have to ask again, are you from the Midwest?
I was born in San Francisco, California, and
What?
raised in Marin County. Yep.
No
In the North
way.
Bay. Yep.
You know you're supposed to be a jerk, right? I mean, the West Coast is like all about like me, money, money, money. Oh man, whatever, get out of it. What can you do for me? Type stuff. You're not like that, bro.
No, thank you, Kenny. I love people, Kenny Shedd. You know this. I just
Yes, I do.
get energy and juice from people, and I don't know. My values are clear, and maybe I should be from the Midwest. I don't know.
No, well, you have that ultra real and caring personality, and that's one of the things that I knew from the very beginning. I mean, you were the Raiders broadcast director at the time just it wasn't like hey, hurry up, get over here, set up the camera crew and all that stuff, and let me get my bid in and let me get it out to the next story. It wasn't like that. You were very patient, very gracious, and you took a moment to sit and listen to the person's story first. And it was the way things should be done, to be honest with you. And seeing what you have going on right now, I can't wait for part 5 and 6 of what you have going on out there now.
All right, hold on. I want to ask you about this film career of yours.
Okay.
Kenny Shedd. So it's clear to everybody listening to this podcast that you're a well above average storyteller. Seriously. And so is that what got you in? And you said, hold on, let's back up even further. At Northern Iowa, one of your classmates was Kurt Warner, the Hall of Fame quarterback for the Rams, the Giants, Cardinals.
Yeah.
So he was your writing mate in college.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Yep.
And then we'll get to the filmmaking career that is part of your life every day nowadays.
Well, so, I mean, film for me has always been something that it doesn't matter how bad things get out there. My time in the NFL was rough, at the beginning. And then my time as a cop was rough during the times and all that stuff. And it didn't really matter what other was going on in life or whatever. I still had my writing. And as long as I can kind of separate myself and, type up or polish up a story that I wrote or came to me way, way back in the days, nobody can take that away from me. So in college was the time when I first came up with my very first script idea in college, and it was during times when I was in class with Kurt and all that stuff. I'm not trying to say that everything just kind of came to me at that time in this writing class. But what I'm saying is that I was able to run ideas that were through my head to key people who really, were my friends and stuff like that. And they were unbiased. If they say it sucked, they would, it wouldn't hurt my feelings. But that's the time when you can kind of see, does this work or not? And people like in that writing class, like Kurt and stuff, I'd run story ideas past them and they would laugh. They would enjoy it. And I was just like, okay, wow. I do still have the ability to write some funny stories. And then once I was done with that script, then another script idea would come to me. Now, this is all in college. So, but when I got drafted, I had no real ability to write and stuff because I'm now concentrated on football. But in the end, guys like Kurt Warner, who are inspiring in their own right, and he never gave up. I remember one time, Chris, when I was with the Raiders and he was with the Iowa Barnstormers, and I was connected through him, and they let me know that he was playing whatever team at the Barnstormers. And I flew up for the game. And after the game, it's me, my buddy Tim Rao, and Kurt. Kurt was I think he was still working at the grocery store at that time, but he was also the starter of the Barnstormers. And we go out to dinner, and he's asking me all these great questions. Oh my God, what's it like to play for the Raiders? How's Al Davis and stuff? Timmy Brown, all these different fantastic questions and stuff, because he's like blown away that his buddy's playing for the NFL, right? And he's soaking it all up. And I'm just like, dude, yeah, all these great things. Fast forward a year later, he gets picked up by the Rams after the World League, wins the Super Bowl, which I went to and I rooted him on. And now I go and I meet him again at Northern. I'm like, dude, how's it feel to be on the freaking cover of Sports Illustrated? So it's like no one's going to stop you if you don't allow it. And Kurt Warner, this Chris Gargano guy, Mr. Al Davis, now Mr. Mark Davis, we're just people who we hear all these negative stuff from people who want to try to keep us down. And we don't pay too much attention to it. And we just maneuver around it and we just keep going. I want Kurt Warner to be in my next movie.
Okay, so that's okay. First of all, we're going to get to that right now. However, I just loved what you said. Never giving up and always seeing the next challenge as the next, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. And you clumped me in with all those great, pioneers in that regard. But my goodness, I love that story. All right. So your movie, Sundance, you want to take it to Sundance. Tell us the title, the premise of the movie. Look at this. NFL, police, filmmaker.
You can't. Well, I was gonna cut you off because you can't quite tell everything about the movie just yet, because the premise is basically simple. It's of a former NFL football player who feels like he's like old news now. His daughter, who grew up admiring him because he used to play for maybe a team that's dressed in silver and black, I guess. I don't know. Let's just say it was those guys. And now she kind of has grown up and now has moved on and doing other things. And now she's looking into the MMA, even though she's not really in it. But her mom is dating a guy who's now in the MMA. So all this stuff is coming crashing down on this former player who feels like he's like old news. So in order to try to win the love back from his daughter, he tried to take up MMA fighting himself. And he figures out right away that he doesn't have the skills to fight. So he's like, okay, I'm going to learn how to promote the fights. So hence the name of the film is called The Next Dana White. As we follow this guy, it becomes like a Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure with all this zany, crazy type freaking scenes and stuff as he goes from place to place to place to try to learn and figure out how to do it. It's a storyline it's a comedy adventure, and it's a storyline that I think it's going to be very funny. And I think I'm feeling pretty good about it, Chris, to be honest with you.
Keep us updated.
I sure
Please,
will.
and I wish you all the luck. You know that. All right, Kenny, here we go. This is going to be the all-star round, and then we'll call it a day. Are you ready? These are quick answers. Don't think. It's one sentence. Just rock. Boom. Quickly. Here we go. How do you deal with adversity?
Remembering how my dad taught me to be strong. And if my dad can grow up in the middle of the Mississippi back in the 40s and be a black man with dark skin and make it out there in that world and be okay, there's nothing that could take me, but that I should be mad about to try to hold me down.
How do you give yourself fuel?
I always think about the people who have shown up when I really, really needed them. And I know that there's some type of special force out there around me that's kind of like WISP, who are giving me signs, follow me, no, follow this. And I just know, like on a daily basis, that all I got to do is just sit still for a minute and a sign will show up, and I'm going to go that route that it takes me.
Excellent. 3, what does never give up mean to you?
Never give up is, to me, it comes from this story I heard like years ago, where this astronaut was, they were on the space station way back up in the days and stuff like that. And some part of their space shuttle broke and it was floating away. And this guy had to put on one of those spacesuits and go out there and hold on to this piece that was connected and repair it. But the only thing was he had to hold on to it for 10 hours. And he knew, and his partner knew, that if he slipped or if let go or something, there was no way that they were going to be able to return back home. And he stood out there for 10 hours holding still and holding this piece of equipment until it could be repaired and connected back to the space shuttle. To me, that's never given up. It's motivating to me on a daily basis. So,
one more, Kenny.
Yes.
Describe yourself as a leader in one sentence.
Being a leader means you have to be cognizant of everybody else around you. It's not about you. There's so many people dependent on you to help them. You know, when I was seeing that some of the younger police officers weren't being treated right, I had to sacrifice my police career so that they can live and prosper. And when I think about all the opportunities that are now open to them, it was well worth it. So yeah, sometimes a leader has to sacrifice their own goals and be okay with it.
Awesome, Kenny. This has been great. It's been great catching up with you. This is so much fun. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best. And we thank Kenny very much for being on the show. My number one takeaway is related to the comfort zone. You remember a few months ago, we had Dr. Bob Turner on in episode 38. He wrote the book, The Zone Leader, 7 Tactics for Leading in the Zones. And he was advocating that your growth and learning takes place outside of your comfort zone. Well, Kenny Shedd should have had his own chapter, right? I should introduce those two, because Kenny Shedd has pushed himself as a football player, then as a police officer, and now as a filmmaker. Those, as we've said, are 3 very challenging professions. And Kenny, he wakes up every day with a smile on his face, as he just told us. What a great conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll have another one for you, everybody, next week on Keep the Line Moving. Have a great week, everybody. Every week, you hear guests on this podcast talk about some of their biggest leadership challenges. As a leader, you want to make an impact on those you lead and reach your organization's goals, while also optimizing your time management. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, we could all use some help. This is what we focus on with our group and individual coaching services. To book a call or get more information, email me directly at chrisg@garganoleadership.com or visit our website at garganoleadership.com. For our podcast and video producer, Jack Radutsky, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwhal, have a great week, everybody.